that made me really wonder on a lot of things. I'm not sure. We didn't even get into the depths of any of the topics to like actually go into his knowledge on things, but yeah, he just kept like rotating around like his really stupid the percentage of people that were violent was low argument over and over again. Hillel Newer's testimony to Congress. Thousands of UN RWA caught inciting. October 7th showing images and videos and praise on Telegram accounts. Possibly the largest ideological. Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to. I'm not sure about that. Wasn't his main point that the severity of the attack is relevant to the insurrection definition? No, it's not really that relevant. And if it is, again, whatever that definition would be, it would be the threshold would have been crossed way earlier. Otherwise, there are like no insurrections in all of U.S. history except for the Civil War. Like, what a stupid point. Maybe redacted. Gifted 5 memberships. Thanks. Oh god, there's one fly flying around here. Fuck. I'll get him. Huh, nice. He tried to reach an agreement with the Palestinian leadership because of his trenchant realism. Arik never believed in permanent settlements. He didn't believe in the one fell swoop approach. Sharon doesn't think that after a conflict of 104 years, it's possible to come up with a piece of paper that will end the matter. He thinks the other side will have to undergo a deep and extended socio-political change. But when we entered the Prime Minister's office, he still believed that he would be able to achieve a very long-term...
I've got like 2 or 3 hours to get like 30 scav kills. With this PPSH, I probably should be running factory, because I can get like 12 or 15 scav kills every 20 minutes.
Up against a stone wall, when you get to the decision-making center, nothing happens. That is kind of true right now. Who represents the Palestinians in terms of like leadership? Would love to figure out how to debate Destiny. I can refute everything he believes about Trump. Open mind. Figure out how to join the disagreement channel on Discord, and I'll drag you up, buddy. Stream disagreement channel on Discord. Abbas? I don't think Abbas has the support of anybody, even the people in the West Bank. I don't think anybody, literally nobody likes Abbas.
I feel like we should definitely
What Wiseglass said right
a player.
There will be no timetable to implement Settlers Nightmare. I postponed the Nightmare indefinitely because what I effectively agreed to with the Americans was that part of the settlements would not be dealt with at all, and the rest will not be dealt with until that it entails has been
oh my god, I went and made a coffee and I haven't even had a sip yet.
House of Congress. What more could have been anticipated? What more could have been done by the settlers?
That feels good. Literally just woke up. Ooh, some keep pad.
Arik can honestly say this is a serious move because of which, out of 240,000 settlers, 190,000 will not be moved from their place. Will not be moved. No, I'm sorry. It doesn't hurt the isolated remote settlements. It's not relevant to them. Okay, does the evacuation of the settlements in Gaza strengthen the settlements from the West Bank?
Oh man, I was watching Desmond Pelik and Clean run like a compilation the other day. And the fucking way that those dudes aim and shit. Oh, that is so good at this fucking game.
In years to come, perhaps decades, when negotiations will be held between Israel and the Palestinians, the master of the world will pound on the table and say, we stated already 10 years ago that the large blocks are part of Israel. And so, Sharon can tell the leaders of the settlers...
It's nice being like freshly woken up.
And in the future,
you know what I should not be doing though? Is like looting a whole bunch of shit. And then trying to walk around it. Although my kit is pretty light.
When he says 50,000 settlers, who are we referring to here? There are only 5,000 in... I got him! Sorry. There are only 50,000... I'm sorry, there are only 5,000 in Gaza, right? Sacrificing his group of children in order to ensure that the others remain permanently where they are. At the moment, he's not sacrificing anyone in Judea and Samaria until the land is quiet and negotiations are done. Nothing's happening. The intention is to fight for every single place. With regard to the isolated settlements, there is an American commitment stating that we are not dealing with them.
Oh, just waking up.
For the large blocks, there is genuine political insurance.
Why is that so hard? There's sleep in my eyes.
But what you're saying is correct. The settlers themselves should organize demonstrations of support for Sharon because he did a tremendous service to the settlement enterprise. They should have danced around and around his office. And Sharon himself actually didn't undergo a de Gaulle-type reversal. He didn't make a U-turn. He remained loyal to the approach of the national camp. Arik is the first person who succeeded in taking the ideas of the national camp and turning them into a political reality that is accepted by the whole world. After all, when he declared 6 or 7 years ago that we would never negotiate under fire, he only generated tales of laughter. Whereas today, that same approach died for the President of the United States, as passed in the House of Representatives by votes 405 to 7, and in the Senate by 95 to 5. From your point of view, then, your major achievement is to approach the political process legitimately. That's exactly
what happened. My mouse just hit my keyboard.
The process is the establishment of the Palestinian state with all the security risks that entails, political process is the evacuation of settlements, it's the return of refugees, it's the partition of Jerusalem, and all that has now been frozen. You have carried out the maneuver of the century, and all of that with authority and permission. When you say maneuver, it doesn't sound nice. It sounds like you said one thing and something else came out, but that's the whole point. After all, what have I been showing for the past year? I have found advice and cooperation from ministers of the world to ensure that there will be no stopgap. There will be no timetable to implement the settler's nightmare. I have postponed that nightmare indefinitely because what I effectively agreed to with the Americans is that part of the settlement will not be dealt with at all, and the rest will not be dealt with until the Palestinians turn into Finns. That is the significance of what we did. The significance is freezing the political process, and when we freeze that process, we can have the establishment of a Palestinian state, and we're in a discussion about refugees, the borders, and Jerusalem. Effectively, this whole package that is called the Palestinian state and what all that it entails has been removed from our community indefinitely. All this with authority and permission, all with a presidential blessing and the ratification of both houses of Congress. What more could have been anticipated?
My God, this is nice.
Given to the settlers. Return to my previous question. In return for ceding Gaza, you have status quo in Samaria. If you could persist on the wrong definitions, the right definitions that we've created a status quo vis-a-vis the Palestinians. It was a very difficult package. Commitments that Israel was expected to accept. That package is called a political process. It included elements we will never agree to accept and elements we cannot accept at this time. But we succeeded in taking that package and sending it beyond the hills of time. With the proper management, we succeeded in removing the issue of the political process from the agenda and educated the world to understand that there is no one to talk
Ready to
to.
scav, boys.
Certificate. That certificate says 1.
Probably should have taken that armband off and maybe dressed in more scavvy clothes.
3. The certificate will be revoked only when
Considering I'm wearing all this like
happens when Palestinian
goofy gear.
You see you then and shalom. Okay.
Probably trying to look the part.
This
I kind of just want to look awesome, not like
First of all, this
scabby.
comes on the heels of the proposals of the Geneva Accords, which was a proposal for peace and negotiation. The proposal would mean the removal of many Israeli settlements, so when Weisglass talks about a freezing, he means that the international pressure for the bad deal that removes the settlers is mounting and something has to be done. This is made quite clear by this quote. In the fall of 2003, we understood that everything is stuck, even though, according to the Americans reading the situation, the blame fell on the Palestinians and not us. Sharon grasped that the state of affairs would not last, we wouldn't leave us alone, wouldn't get off our case, and was not on our side. There was an international erosion, internal erosion. Domestically, in the meantime, everything was collapsing, the economy was stagnant, and the Geneva Initiative garnered broad support. Unquote. You can still disagree with them, but the Israeli government not wanting to be pressured into peace, it would mean giving up many settlements in the post-Intifada world. It's very different than wanting to give up all Palestinians. In fact, when the unilateral disengagement was first announced, it was as a response to the Palestinian Authority not acting enough to abide by the Roadmap for Peace initiatives, according to PM Sharon, and the disengagement could only be implemented if the PA continued to fail. The Roadmap for Peace initiatives was the first peace talks that Sharon entered into after the Intifada. These were newly appointed President Abbas. These ended up not leading to anything. The alternative explanation why Israel did all of this is the one laid out with the idea of a unilateral disengagement, which was announced by Sharon. That is, securing consent of better security lines and be held for a long duration. The disengagement seems not to be a concession that this is going to happen, rather that short-term negotiations are doomed, so therefore the security of Israel comes first in mind. They seem to believe that peace in Palestine is only possible once they have stopped having terrorists in their government and with some political change. Well, this would mean a delay in peace. It is not a fair characterization, kind of like this identical to conjuring up an infinite pretense to delay peace. I believe the interview of Weisglass supports this view and gives a good overview of how he believes this changes the Israeli negotiating position. Here's a quote. Sharon thinks the other side of a deep and extended socioeconomic change for every other. Okay. Cool. Thanks for the added information. Okay, so I understand a bit more. So basically, there's a quote from here that's pulled out that makes it seem like the disengagement from Israel was basically just to make it so that Palestinians could never have peace, basically. Some people say that. I repeated that claim. But I guess in the fuller context of this interview, that was basically like a last-ditch negotiating chip, I think, that Israel had to protect the settlements in the West Bank and to and not to get pressured into accepting, I guess, what they would have felt like was an undisputed peace, which isn't completely but like shades it out a little bit more. I mentioned to you about talking to the former Israeli advisor who, at least according to himself, was one of the most influential voices advocating this engagement. Any advice on how I go about asking him to come on stream? I can leave some interviews. Email him and point out my stream, point out my interview with Benny Morris and say, listen, the IDX founder is directly the office of the staff in Sharon's time. He's behind the scenes, thoughts, talks. I wonder if we could, like when we were talking, if I've spoken to Benny Morris, Open Mind also, what's your name? Oh, also, Tom Blib, thanks for $100. Extremely thankful to find a liberal support second that tickets. Thanks. I feel like after learning to Benny Morris, I should have a lot of like fingers into the like Israeli political / historical scene. I feel like there should be other people I could talk to. I just need somebody that like aggressively reaches out and grabs these people. It was super interesting. Open mind is on it. Oh, if you don't know how to use technology, I don't know. Maybe, but I'm going to use like my screen. So Cosmic Skeptic, or listen, as long as he hasn't rebranded, okay, I don't know. Wait, also, where's this guy? He did? Okay, well, no. First or second of the fifth or eighth. That's my comment on Gary Coleman's last night. Wait, what the fuck? What are they talking about? These guys want me to rebroadcast Ayla's dating show. Oh god. Could rebroadcast. What days are you guys thinking? You're probably going to be out of town or traveling for a ton. Were you the one who introduced Hassan to Austin and Trainwrecks? I think I did for Trainwrecks. I might have for Austin. I don't remember.
Oh, it's a camera, not a beacon. Who's messaging me? Now is not the time. You can't see me because my Wi-Fi or my webcam's turned off, but I got a big scale on my face. Yeah. super nervous. I just brought a PPSH into this raid, and I just need to extract. Let me see if the car is here. Oh, it is here. Fucking people in dorms. Can't run. Run. I might get heard. I might fucking...
Hello, Alex. You're up.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Woo!
Yeah. What's up?
For the record, the schizo guy who
Wait.
was yelling at your YouTube chat is the other one.
Gotcha. Also, wait. Hold on. First sentence. You need to state your disagreement.
And I'm glad I returned fire on that dude.
I think you handled an argument by Glenn Greenwald poorly yesterday. I think you could have done it better.
Which argument?
Glenn was saying that like the whole point of Trump, like the whole point of Jan 6 was to delay the certification. I think that
Well-
would be like just as bad as like a soft coup. Is what I would have said.
I mean, I feel like I was basically making that argument, no?
Yeah, but I feel like there's like a more clear way you could state it that is like
Like
in
what?
arguable on his part. So first you would need to get like a couple premises. So first, Trump didn't believe or he believed the election was stolen then. He still believes that now. And third, you need to get the other person to agree that there's no proof that the election actually was stolen. From there, you can basically say if Trump didn't believe that he lost the election and the certification is delayed, how are we expecting Trump to stand down and like give up the presidency to Biden? Like this will probably be weeks or months afterwards. Like, it's
Big scab on your face, like meth
It's
scabs.
unreasonable to think that this guy who
Like
does
Tarkov,
not believe
scav with
he
a
lost
V.
the election, can actually like stand down
Is
after like the due date of
Scavenger.
Just say that, but he did stand down. He
I
did.
guess it's what they call the
I
drunk
mean, yeah, but you
locals
can say,
of
but I
Tarkov.
feel like this would counter the idea of on Jan 6th, if the protesters were successful in their like quote unquote goal of like delaying.
You gotta kill like
certification, it would be
35
just
of
as
them
bad
or
as a coup.
something.
'Cause if
Well,
they
but he
were
would say if he thought it was
Anyway,
legitimate.
this is
I think
huge.
he
I
even
finally found a
admitted
flash
because Trump
drive.
stated
Oh,
it was for 3 weeks
yeah.
longer to sort it all out. He said he'd be okay with it. I think he already bit like a way worse.
Kinda hard to
bullet on
find.
that by
Well,
admitting that.
I think as soon as he says that, you can just respond saying like, okay, if he's
Damn it,
in
did
there
I just
for
lose my
2 weeks
quest?
afterwards, he's not leaving. Period. That's like something to point out to make it clear to the audience. Like, if this would have happened, it would have been just as
But I
bad
still
as
had like
if
another
he's
hour
not
or two to
leaving
do
because he
this,
doesn't
but maybe it
believe
was
that he
like 2
stolen.
minutes.
There's
And I
And
just thought
maybe,
it
but then
was
like
2
now we're
hours.
dealing in. He already didn't like dealing with historical analogies. Now we're dealing with a whole historical
Eliminate
counterfactual.
scavs with
like,
headshots.
I don't like
Yeah,
to
I
argue
guess.
much on when I'm dealing,
Yeah,
especially
damn
somebody
it.
with bad faith.
Yeah, now I just have
I
to
don't like
find.
to argue
I had a
on
weekly
hypothetical
quest,
grounds
which I had
or
a few hours
counterfactual
left
grounds
to
as
do,
much
but
because these people are already not engaging in fact-based discussion, and to get pulled into arguing over a whole
now I should
complicated
find Jack
hypothetical where
Daniels
he
and
stays in
vodka.
office, investigates voter fraud, and then stays passive. Like he's not going to accept any of that, right?
I think that's fair. I think there's like some like wham line or something, like something snappy you could say, like if he's still there, if Jan 6th worked like how they wanted it to work, he would have stayed. I think there's like some point to like
Yeah, but then you could just say
hammer
like, but he
down.
left on the 20th when the vote went through. So why wouldn't he have left? He already did.
Oh, then you would just say like if it was delayed, then why would he leave if he didn't think he lost? If it was delayed for like to gather evidence, no evidence is going to convince him.
Maybe.
Prices are
Maybe
inflated.
But then I also kind of asked, like, what evidence would it take you to think that Trump was lying? And he said that no evidence seemed okay for that. And then I asked him about the all the people that were telling him it was stolen, and then he said that, well, he didn't trust any of those people. So what? I guess actually maybe the silver bullet would be if all of the people that were investigating he didn't trust, why would he have trusted anybody else after more investigations?
Yeah, that's kind of like the idea of like, you have like all this evidence then, and like years afterwards, like obviously no one has any good evidence because like no legal cases have brought up. There's like nothing showing that there actually was any election fraud. We know years afterwards, with many people interested in trying to find this evidence, that there's nothing. How are you expecting Trump, who already is not listening to anyone who he's trusted into like investigating this, how are we expecting him to listen to them afterwards if the certification was stopped? It's not like this probably won't come up in like in every debate. I just think it's some kind of like argument that you can use that is like basically impossible to answer from like the conservative side.
Yeah, I changed my mind. This is a really, really good question. So the question would be, 4 years have passed since the last election. All of the investigations and court cases to find significant voter fraud have completely failed, yet Donald Trump still believes that significant voter fraud existed. Why should we believe that if the J6ers managed to delay the certification of the vote for additional investigations, that Donald Trump would believe anything that disagrees with his assumption that he won the election? Why would we expect him to leave office and not just continue to investigate, to push to investigate more and more and more and more? Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good point.
And then I had a second disagreement. I guess I'm not really sure your position. What do you think about people using regarded instead of retarded? Do you think that's like better than using retarded?
I think people just use regarded because Reddit banned people who say retarded.
Okay. So you don't think there's like any like people use it because it makes them feel better instead of like saying retarded?
I don't think so. I think people literally just say regarded because you get banned for saying retarded on like Reddit and maybe other platforms.
Okay, then I don't have a second disagreement then. Okay, well I hope that argument helps. Bye. Have a nice stream.
Have fun. Bye.
Me, 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 me. You. Where are you?
So I had a long conversation with Destiny about Palestine and Israel. And within just a few minutes of hearing him speak, I realized that Nathan Robinson's description of him as having sub-Wikipedia level knowledge on the issue was actually too generous of Nathan. And what's remarkable is that even though Destiny was clearly out of line, that did not shake his confidence one bit. He projected authority by ridiculing the facts I was bringing up, even though he had absolutely no clue what he was talking about.
So to be clear, you're saying before that, you're saying that the Israeli official policy was to use human shields. That was codified in the military doctrine.
That is official.
It's so crazy that they say that, yet the only image I've ever seen of the human shield is that one boy on the Jeep that gets posted 50 billion times over and over again. But okay.
But confidently dismissing facts doesn't change that they're true. Here is a BBC News article about how when the Israeli Supreme Court banned the Israeli military from using Palestinian civilians as human shields, the Israeli military establishment and the defense minister protested that ban because it was useful for them as a matter of policy. And that practice continues even after the ban. Destiny also claimed that
I feel like going over these would be nice, but okay.
Amnesty International had accused Hamas of using civilians as human shields in 2014.
Do you also acknowledge that they say that, for instance, like Hamas uses human shields? Because Amnesty International says that.
They do not. What human rights organizations accuse Hamas of, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, is the fact that they operate in civilian areas and hide in civilian areas which endanger civilians. They acknowledge that much. That is not the legal definition of human shield.
That is the legal definition.
I know what human rights organizations document.
Well, you don't. You didn't know that in 2014, Amnesty International said that Hamas was using human shields. So
again, you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I've actually read the reports. You should try it sometime.
Well, let's look at the Amnesty reports of 2014. Addressing Israel's claims of human shields during the assault, Amnesty International said they have no evidence.
It's crazy to like
Palestinian civilians were
just tell someone they don't know what they're talking about and
After
to
the
read the
assault,
reports, and then when they're like, you should do it too, you just like don't
Amnesty
respond.
International is monitoring investigations reports, but does not
Like, he
have
just doesn't even
evidence
know.
at this point that
Then when he's not
Palestinians
around, just repeat that
intentionally
message.
induced Hamas or Palestinian armed
Why do people
groups
just fucking repeat messages over and over and over when other people aren't around? I mean, I know where they do it, but it's just so fucking... Why would you ever listen to someone talk about someone else without bringing that person into it?
Doesn't we have a link to this report?
You know, at like a court hearing,
This is using their retarded definition? No, it doesn't matter. Even in Amnesty International's definition, they
you
use,
get to be
they
there
say
while they
it's
prosecute you, right?
We read through a decent chunk of this on stream. What was the...
These are so little when you have them here, but when you have them in the game, they're huge. These giant cameras, like bigger than your head.
Oh, Amnesty International is monitoring... Oh, wait. During the current conflict, they're only talking about...
I don't want to pay euros for this.
Particular thing going
I need
on.
to check. Apparently I need
This
euros.
is in 2014, though. It should be the same thing. Does anybody have a link to the actual report here? That's not the report. It says Q&A.
Need
Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on. This is
50,000 euros for mentor. After we do wet job, how do we get wet job?
This doesn't
We
look
do
like it.
spa
I feel like the
tour.
Amnesty International thing had pictures. They like pictures.
How many euros do I have? 5,000. I need 45,000 more euros. Cool.
Amnesty International. This is from 2002. Jesus.
We'll save that scav. Need a kit. One grenade will do.
You have links in the notes you made a while ago. I don't know if I was saving the Amnesty International.
Yeehaw.
Maybe I was. This has to do with Hamas killing Palestinians in Gaza.
Anyway, welcome to the channel, Splue Guy.
Just a quote that he shows. Just a quote section that he shows. No,
Meth
I know the
scabs,
article
meth
he's linking to
scabs.
Google. I'm trying to find there's an actual 2014 like report. It's like a PDF that goes through a bunch of different findings of the 2014 Gaza Israeli.
I should get unbanned from DGG today.
Can I look for like PDF? Maybe it was released in 2015, and then it goes over the 20. You should just be saving these in a folder somewhere. Maybe. I mean,
Who was this? I need to memorize this name so I can tell people this was not me. Anabolic fish.
13th, 2014. Parties to the conflict also are required to take necessary precautions.
I forget
to
my
protect
heels again.
civilians. The obligation to take precautions in attack includes adjusting the means and timings of the attack to minimize harm to civilians and civilian objects, ensuring whenever feasible, blah, blah, blah. Prime munitions which cannot be persisting into military targets, such as artillery and mortars in densely populated restricted areas, does not comply with the obligation to take all necessary precautions, even if they are aimed at areas which attacks. Parties to the conflict avoiding feasible co-locating military objectives in the vicinity of densely populated civilian neighborhoods. This means that parties should avoid dangerous mission in and object populated civilian areas. And I'm pretty sure that Amnesty International concluded that Hamas was
Nightmare.
trying to figure out. Fuck, I don't remember what PDF we read. Were you thinking of that NATO document? Was it a NATO document? I thought it was an Amnesty. I'm almost positive it was an Amnesty International one because I think Finkelstein references it in one of his books. Palestine strangling knives, abductions, torture, summary killings of Palestinians by Hamas. So Palestinians will kill other Palestinians when they think they're like collaborators. We already know this, but that's not what I'm looking for. I can't believe this is so hard to find. Wait.
Just gotta kill people in this office. That's my quest.
Okay, it's not.
Did you have it in your notes?
Okay,
No,
we
'cause
got
it was a
bears.
2014
Now we
thing.
got
didn't really go that
goddamn
far, so I don't think I
scabs.
saved any info.
So, what do we have here?
Shields.
Never mind, we still got work to do. Keep up!
It's so annoying. I knew I was fucked when I opened this up and I was like, I have to release my...
It was in here?
Ah!
Probably be criticism of the Israeli side for this.
Fuck!
I don't know, conduct of Palestinian armed groups. Oh, maybe it was this one. Always about the definition, not of it's not just definition is irrelevant. That's not true. Co-locating military objectives on top of civilian objectives counts as human shields. There's a weird definition that Finkelstein uses, which is commandeering people to fight for you counts as human shields, which would, but the actual definition is more broad. We will research the rest of this. I don't care if you go before. Level 1.
Did all the PMCs just die?
No. Reports does not have evidence at this point that Palestinian civilians have been intentionally used by Hamas or Palestinian armed groups during the current hostilities to shield specific locations of military personnel or equipment from Israeli attacks. As explained above in previous conflicts, Amnesty International has documented that Palestinian armed groups have stored munitions and fired indiscriminate rockets from residential areas in the Gaza Strip, and available evidence indicates that they continue to do both during the current hostilities in violation of international humanitarian law. During the current hostilities, Hamas people have reportedly urged residents in some areas of the Gaza Strip not to leave their homes after the Israeli military false warnings for them to evacuate. However, in light of the lack of clarity in many of the Israeli warnings, it's safe for us to evacuate like others or other places to go. To the numerous Palestinians who did heed the warnings and flee, doing so under Israeli fire. Such things by Hamas officials could have been motivated by a desire footage of Hamas shooting rockets from civilian areas. There's a bunch of videos of the IDF bombing those rocket launchers. Why are you looking through biased dog shit organization report?
Finding it hard to wake up this morning.
It's
You
nice
get
that it comes
headshots.
from their reports because these people cite these constantly. So it's just nice to be able to use their own reports. Didn't I already check this one? 47 in the doc, or page 47 in the... Oh, they're the same. 21st of July, the Israeli military shelled Shuhada al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah, killing at least 4 people and wounding dozens. The Israeli military takes the of caching anti-tank missiles to the immediate vicinity of the hospital started by Israeli forces. Amnesty International has not been able to confirm these Palestinian armed groups violated international humanitarian law by spraying munitions near the hospital, and this was what Israel was targeting when instructing hospital civilians. Serious defense by the manner of the activities.
One on the structures for military areas, land or in close proximity to civilian buildings, areas or other civilian structures. Several of these actions, which have been discussed above, destroying munitions in civilian buildings or launching attacks in the vicinity of civilian buildings, violate the obligation to take all people, but they do not necessarily amount to the law. The specific international humanitarian law. Why are my bullets not going straight?
Storing munitions in civilian buildings doesn't violate by using the presence of civilians or other protected persons to render certain points of areas immune from military operations. How not? The practices most commonly condemned, as such, have involved actually moving civilians to military objectives in order to shield those objectives from attack. Well, yeah, but most common doesn't mean only. What a weird thing to say, but okay. According to the International Committee of the Red Cross, the use of shields requires location of military objectives for civilians or persons who they combat with a specific intent of trying to prevent the targeting of those military objectives. Well, what does this mean? Okay. You were mentioned on Logan Paul's recent podcast. Mike Maljek shared his thoughts on your debate with Shapiro if you want to check it out. The next paragraph is even more wild. Amnesty International is having to verify the police statement from the Israeli authorities decided to by hospitals and hostilities during the civilian in Gaza. However, the statements were directed to civilians in general and largely urban areas of the all to ignore the warnings as these are part of a psychological warfare. Public statements referring
I can always change weapons. I just remembered I have a backup gun.
homes in order to render fighters, munitions, or military equipment in specific locations immune from Israeli attacks. Thus, while potentially of concern, such statements would not constitute the use of human shields. There are no... In these circumstances, the Hamas authorities instructing civilians in the Gaza Strip not to leave their homes could have been out of concern for their safety or a desire to avoid further panic. Israeli authorities have claimed that in a few incidents, the Hamas authorities or Palestinian fighters directly or physically coerced individuals in specific locations to shield combatants from military objectives. International is not able to corroborate the facts of it. What do they mean when they say they can't? I don't understand. It feels like sometimes Amnesty International will interview a Palestinian person and then they take that at face value. Because I think for some of the earlier claims of human shields that were used by Israel, where the claim is that, and this probably did happen, I'm not going to say Israel has never used human shields. The claim was that sometimes when IDF were firing at certain houses, they would send a which I'm pretty sure would rise to the level of I would imagine it would. However, but they don't. I feel like Amnesty International doesn't need corroboration there. They just get like witness testimony from a Palestinian, and then it's just like 100% true. I wonder how they try to corroborate this information. Specific assertions of the use of civilians as human shields by Palestinian armed groups in the Gaza Strip should be independently investigated. Wait, does this not count as an independent investigation, or are they just like going by? What a weird. I feel like these statements are not. Don't coincide. I feel like with what I've read. International law. That if I know there's like an apartment building over there and I start storing rockets in the basement, even if I don't tell the civilians where to stay.
Fucking game.
Ukrainian fighting tactics endanger civilians.
It's so dumb.
Ukrainian voice put civilians in harm's way by establishing
I didn't realize if I took a step to the right, I would not
The
extract.
Russian invasion began in February. Amnesty International said today. Well, to be fair,
Hid
hold on.
eyes.
Endangers or does something bad isn't necessarily the same as saying they've like violated humanitarian law or whatever, right? Such tactics violate international humanitarian law. Okay.
He debates chinking listen now might be good.
It's a proximate human shield, but the issue is does that take away their
He was
protections
in The
from
Whale,
civilians?
forget his name, but he seemed really
You
nice.
co-locate military objects on civilian things, the target becomes a military
Oh,
target.
you
so
mean Brendan
lose your-
Fraser?
It doesn't become a civilian target anymore, so it's targetable.
Why
but
are
you still
we,
have to
talking
do,
about Brendan Fraser?
calculation Of, collateral damage, is my understanding.
It seems like a kind of disjointed message. The pic on Discord.
What is the last
Oh,
paragraph?
let me check.
Hamas or Palestinian armed groups associated with other factions did in fact... Oh, but this is different. Does in fact not fall into the category of
That's me and Tarkov.
Way with the intent of maximizing collateral damage. Yeah,
I was
would
actually
imagine
wearing
intent
a
is-
cowboy hat like that. I guess you
Like
saw
if
it.
you, like if you were to... If you were to store something in what you thought was like an
Yeah, he does seem
military
nice.
notebook, there's like a
How nice would it be
squad
just to
that
be
look
like
I can't
have such a
imagine
good reputation
like
amongst
you
like the whole
see
world?
shields
Everyone
around,
just
so there must be like
thinks
a
you're like a great guy.
criminal intent there.
Did I just sell some beef jerky for 69 rubles? Why did I do
At
that?
Destiny, you're completely wrong about the Israel example. They would sometimes send in neighbors to knock on the door so the person would come out peacefully instead of going in guns blazing, not so that the Palestinian blows up instead of them. Sure, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I'm pretty sure, even with
Yeah,
what
let's try to
you're
sell some of this
saying,
stuff.
I think that would still count as using human shields, but I'm not 100% sure.
What is the sauced ammo?
Also endangered Palestinian civilians by failing
I
to
can never
involve
remember.
these
If this ammo had like a secret
Economy,
code, I would probably just remember
oh
it.
wait, this was the one.
So, I mean, sauced is kind
Their
of a
military
secret
activities,
code,
notably
isn't
by
it?
firing rockets from residential areas and storing
Hello, Destiny. My friend, open era, I just woke up. My friend was in a bar flirting with Obama's daughter, true random fact. That's cute. I bet that felt really good for her as well, being flirted with. Is your friend a respectful gentleman and a really nice guy?
They did so with the intent of shielding themselves. The extremely high population density in Gaza, a small territory and one of the most densely populated places in the world, entails additional challenges for all of the parties involved in the conflict or armed confrontations. Notwithstanding these difficulties, Hamas
Sauced
and other
ammo.
armed groups have an obligation to
Not
avoid
too
conflict,
bad.
which, by intent or through
55
recklessness,
damage,
exposes the civilian
33
population
pen,
to danger, and
39
obligation on
armor
civilian
damage,
populations to
which
cover for the
is
military activities and
higher
using
than
civilians to shield a military objective
some of them.
with human shields is a war crime.
More
Hamas and other
accurate.
Palestinian groups have endangered civilians by firing rockets from populated residential neighborhoods. In one case, local residents told Amnesty International
It
that
causes
Hamas
bleeds.
Hamas
I guess that's why it's called
fired
the
a rocket at
SOST,
night from
because
the
it
courtyard of a government
causes
school in the
bleeds.
center of Gaza City during Operation Cast Lead. When
Actual
schools were
Operation
closed,
Science
and
and
the
Tech
killed in an
Bullet.
Israeli airstrike on the street as they were leaving the schoolyard. In another case, a resident saw Hamas fighters setting a
Alright,
rocket
it's
launcher
kind
in
of
the
the
middle of the road.
bleeding thing is kind of nice.
In another area of Gaza City, residents showed
5.56 by 4.5.
We
haven't have any guns like that.
Residential houses. Television footage from the Arabic TV station Al Arabia broadcast during Operation Cast Lead also showed a presenter seemingly caught off guard, saying that she had just heard a rocket being fired from the street near the building which houses the TV station in the center of Gaza City. Okay, maybe this is what I remember reading. Oh, I guess because I'm literally on stream reading it. Okay, this is what I remember. Okay, thank you. I'm 99% sure this would count as like human shields. These are when you're fighting basically near residential things. You keep reading other sources for a few minutes on this. By the way, Aaron Barak, who turned that military tactic illegal, did it out of the reason that the Palestinian civilians who willingly comply with such requests by the IDF probably doesn't really do it willingly because he feels intimidated by all military presence.
What? He's a good guy, respectable, but definitely not a milady dude. He works with Big Hit, #1 rapper in NA. Nice. What does he do? Does he like go to their concerts and then make sure all the speakers play the sounds correctly, or does he help them with creative endeavors, or? You know who I love is Rick Rubin, and he's a guy who doesn't make music but works directly with those big #1 hits.
So they also cite that
Is your friend Rick Rubin? Because man, listening to Rick Rubin talking to rappers about how to manage their lives and how to like enjoy their stressful careers was really interesting because he keeps that creative flow going.
It did not necessarily amount to using human shields.
Yeah, I wish that, because if we go to the IH, is it IHRC? IHRC human shields definition. Why are you not playing the clip of you reading that paragraph? Because I literally just read that paragraph. Why would I play a clip of me reading what I just read? Unless there's another, I tried to find this before because like wait, look around because I'm trying to figure out like because there's another definition of human shields that Finkelstein uses that I have.
Tarkov servers are melting.
I just don't know what Finkelstein references. I don't know where this comes from. I think when I was looking before, this is the. The definition of the prohibition of using human shields in the Geneva Conventions, Additional Protocol 1, and the Statute of the International Criminal Court are couched in terms of using the presence or movement of civilians or other protected persons to render certain points or areas immune from military operations. Most examples given in military manuals, or which have been the object of condemnations, have been cases where persons were actually taken to military objectives in order to shield those objectives from attacks. The military manuals of New Zealand and the United Kingdom give as example the placing of persons in or next to ammunition trains. There were many condemnations of the threat by Iraq to round up and place prisoners of war and civilians in strategic sites around military defense points. Other condemnations on the basis of this prohibition related to rounding up civilians and putting them in front of
Good morning, Open Era.
Liberia. So this is intentionally moving
I hope you slept
in
good.
the review of the indictments in the Karadzic and Mladic cases, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia qualified physically securing or otherwise holding peacekeeping forces against their will at potential NATO air targets, including ammunition bunkers, a radar site, and a communications center, as using human shields. It can be concluded that the use of human shields requires an intentional co-location of military objectives and civilians or persons forced into combat with the specific intent of trying to prevent the targeting of those military objectives. Is there, I wonder, is there somebody that has like written on this? The C has read it. Does storing ammo in residential count as human shields? Hi, what's up?
I cannot hear you. If you're speaking, one second, let me try to figure this out.
Destiny Norm's definition is just wrong. He's just drunk on the AI report that sort of mistakenly says co-locating must be coercive and intentional movement of civilians to assert. As you read, this is common among condemned and example cases, but co-location is not just forced movement, it's co-location. Sure, Eric, but I'm curious, like, has there been an example of co-location of military to civilians that international courts have condemned? I guess that's what I'm looking for. Like, what would be comparable to what Hamas is being accused of, or what people, when people say that Hamas is throwing rockets in place? I guess we could read the UN Such tactics violate international humanitarian law and endanger civilians as they turn civilian objects into military targets. The ensuing Russian strikes on populated areas have killed civilians and destroyed civilian infrastructure. We have a documented pattern of Ukrainian forces putting civilians at risk and violating the laws of war when they operate in populated areas. I don't understand why this counts as breaking the laws of war, but the Hamas stuff doesn't. I don't understand that. I don't understand how you make one argument but not the other.
Can you hear me?
Hi, what's up?
Okay, now I can hear you. So I think what the argument they're kind of trying to make here is that Hamas has no area they can go that isn't surrounded by civilians. And since there is no area they can go that isn't surrounded by civilians, that's why they are not using them as human shields. I think is
well, I mean, they could designate like military areas, or they could operate like there are definitely places you could go that are out of like all the huge like apartment buildings and everything. You don't have to operate in the middle of the city. But the reason why they won't do that is because obviously they would get their shit fucked, right?
Yeah, exactly. But shouldn't that by itself, like, there's no reason they have to store any of their military stuff or fire rockets.
Just because they're bad at combat doesn't mean they're allowed to do war crimes.
Like, if they can move, which you're right that they can, they would get blown up and killed. But isn't Amnesty International like
plant a forest and then do guerrilla war if you have to?
If your choice is you either go and put your military targets not away from civilians, or you can put them near civilians. I don't understand how that just doesn't meet the definition here. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like it's a dumb argument to get hung up on the human shields thing. I feel like the more interesting argument is like, yeah, of course Hamas operates with human shields because if they don't use human shields, then they have no chance, and like is a people deprived of like being able to resist or fight, you know, if they're operating out of dense areas, which I think is an argument you could have, but
yeah, that's why I guess that the walk down question is just simply, can Hamas fire rockets and do military operations outside of civilian areas? If the answer to that is yes, then they're using human shields. Now, if it's
even if the answer is no, they're still using human shield, right? Because they could evacuate or move civilians away from where military stuff is being stored, but they obviously won't do that because it would inhibit their ability to fight, right?
Yeah, so if Amnesty International is just saying, well, Hamas hasn't come out and said they're doing this intentionally in order to cause not military.
Hi guys, this is Pestillion.
I guess that's the bar that they're requiring.
Is that really? There's no way that intent requires a confession of the crime there, though. Like I imagine intent can very easily be established. If I go into an apartment building and I put weapons in the basement, that's probably sufficient to draw intent, like full stop. Like why? Like I don't think anybody reasonably say, well, did they know that there were civilians living in that apartment building?
Yeah, I agree. And or is there just an alternative place that they can store the ammunitions? Can they build the tunnels not under residential areas? Like you said, they can just square off this is the military district. Like, it feels like the obvious response is that if they do any of that, then that's just pinning a target on Hamas, and it makes it easier for them to be targeted and killed. So, like, again, I guess the question is, if not using human shields, if not being around civilians means that you're more likely to die, like, that's just straight up using human shields. I don't get it. I don't know.
That's not the... Coming back to what you were saying earlier, the Amnesty report still says that they're violating international law, right?
I believe it did.
Oh,
it might have qualified. I'm sorry, maybe it might have qualified. Like, if they're doing this, then they're violating international law. They might have qualified.
In previous conflicts, Amnesty International has documented that armed groups have stored munitions in and fired indiscriminate rockets from residential areas in the Gaza Strip, in violation of international humanitarian law. So I guess they're just being weird about the definition of human shields, if that even is what it is. But,
oh, do you think they're saying this is violating what would if this isn't human shields? What would the international law be? Is like co-locating military and civilian things, does it have a different name in international law, or?
I guess the co-locating is just like, yeah, I don't know where that comes from, but that's why I always say when people say human shields, it's like, it's apparently it's like a legal gotcha, but I don't know if Amnesty are using the word properly, but like, yeah, it's still a violation of international law.
My understanding is co-locating military and civilian objectives intentionally is human shields. Like under international law, that's called like human shields.
Yeah, that's what the words of the law say, but I don't know if that's exactly how it's practiced. That's why I just kind of leave it alone.
Yeah, and Amnesty International here is saying we can't know that it's been done intentionally because Amnesty International seems to implicitly be saying or agreeing that it's impossible for them to not be located near civilians or civilian populations.
That doesn't make
co-locating doesn't mean you're locating. You're intentionally moving both things, right? Co-locating
well,
just means
in
you're,
the
like,
most egregious examples, you're moving civilians, right? You're telling civilians, go to this place and we're going to store ammo here and fuck you. But like, you could also just store ammunition under civilians, and my understanding would be the same thing. Like, you don't have to move civilians.
And even in the report you were just reading, they were saying, like, when they tell them not to leave, right? There's rocket fire coming down, Israel striking them, and they're saying don't leave. Amnesty International saying, well, they could be saying that because they just don't want to cause a panic. Like,
yeah, I don't know. It seems silly, I guess. I don't, yeah. But they mean, they have said that Hamas is like engaged in this behavior.
What's this? Hang on. Someone just sent me something. Apparently, the UN Secretary General has accused Hamas and other militants of using human shields in 2023. So, if I was going to guess, it could be actually that's what the legal definition is, and it's just when people say human shields, they mean it colloquially.
There is no definition for human shield, so that's one of the complicated things. Human shields are prohibited, but they're not defined. So they're actually defined through other things like Geneva Convention 3, Article 23, which is security of prisoners, Geneva Convention 4, Article 28, which is not letting you put protected persons in danger zones, Additional Protocol 1, Article 51.7, protection of civilian population. So basically the protections afforded to civilians make the use of human shields prohibited, but what a human shield actually isn't defined anywhere in international law. However, in the Red Cross conduct hostilities, like the conduct of hostilities, they say that the decisive factor for distinguishing the use of human shields from non-compliance with the obligations to take passive precautions is whether the intermingling between civilians and combatants and military objectives is a result of the defender's specific intention to obtain the protections for its military forces and objectives, or it's simply a lack of care for the civilian population. So either way, it is going against international law by not taking the proper precautions, but it's not using human shields unless that intent can be demonstrated, that the purpose of using these people was to provide that protection to the military assets.
So if under this definition, then if you threw 100 civilians in a building because you know if the enemy blows it up, it'll look really bad for them, but you don't plan on those particular civilians, hampering an opponent from actually blowing the building up, then you're saying under that definition it wouldn't count as a human shield?
Well, that's one of the really complicated things, is that if your enemy demonstrates they don't really care about protecting those civilians, then it's a complicated thing that's spoken about in the law. But the difference is, so there are basically 3 classifications within the literature, which is voluntary, involuntary, and proximate. So someone like Rachel Corrie, who stood in front of the bulldozer, that's a voluntary human shield. She put her life on the line. And there are definitely people in Gaza who would be being like, I'll stay with this. If I lose my life, then glory to me, right? Then there are involuntary, which is people who are forced to stay somewhere. You saw the stories of them saying Hamas won't let people leave. That would be an involuntary human shield. But a proximate human shield are people going about their life who have no idea what's happening, that they're sitting on top of a pile of bombs. And that's different. I think the problem is it doesn't change things in terms of Hamas's responsibility, right? Because you can still prove intent. But I'm fairly sure that when there have been former investigations, the problem has been they haven't found military assets in the same places as civilians who are dead. So it's just the intent thing makes it really difficult to substantiate an evidence. And it's just, yeah, one of those complicated things where technically human shield isn't a defined category. It's simply something that's made illegal through other protections provided to civilians in warfare. I know it's not satisfying.
Yeah, I'm just curious. International Criminal Court, element of crimes. So, Article 8, Section 2, subsection B, blah, 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 blah. War crime of using protected persons as shields. The perpetrator moved or otherwise took advantage of the location of one or more civilians or other persons protected under the international law of armed conflict, or the perpetrator intended to shield a military objective from attack, or shield, favor, or impede military operations. The conduct took place in the context of and was associated with an international armed conflict. The perpetrator was aware of factual circumstances to establish the existence of an armed conflict. These are the 4 elements that have to be met to satisfy the war crime of using protected persons as shields. Location. So, I guess it just depends on what took advantage means and what shield means, because we're saying that like if a person moves through a civilian population but they think they're going to get killed anyway, then it doesn't count as using a human shield because they don't expect them to shield them. Oh, those are all.
Are you taking passive? Are you taking passive precautions? So, like, you could say, look, we were trying to avoid civilians, right? But ultimately, there's only so much we can avoid in a guerrilla warfare, in modern warfare that's fought in an urban environment. But we tried to take passive precautions.
Sure, yeah.
Or saying we literally put ourselves.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that like if somebody was, if like let's say we have all the text messages that can read the minds, and there's a group of people who are like, listen, Israel's going to bomb us no matter what. Enemy X is going to bomb us no matter what. Let's try to escape through this city where you're running through a whole bunch of like, there's a bunch of civilians there, and maybe it'll like slow them down and they'll be fine. Would that not count as a human shield?
God, I regret not bringing a compass to Tarkov.
Yeah, well, that's one of the complicated things that I don't think it's like one of the questions human shields ask is like, if you know that they're going to attack people anyway and not respect that protected status, which is a war crime in itself, does it still count as a human shield? But I'm not saying that is something I would say Hamas does. I think that's just one of those weird theoretical questions that people.
So my question is essentially, if the human shields work and they don't strike, that's illegal because they're using human shields. But if you use human shields and then they just strike you anyway, then that's not using human shields because it wasn't successful.
I don't know. It's illegal to use them, and it's illegal to.
I was meant to drink my milk. I forgot.
This is a question about like when a human shield isn't defined, even though it's prohibited, right?